Let me start with an issue that I hear about frequently from my constituents. I get calls, emails, letters, conversations all the time about constituents who are finding great difficulty in using an ethanol blended form of gasoline because it causes problems in their older cars, their boats, their snowmobiles, lawnmowers, offshore or off-road vehicles. And this comes up over and over again. And my constituents are experiencing these problems even with an ethanol blend of just 10%. So Senator Cardin and I wrote to you and introduced the legislation as well, urging the EPA not to grant a waiver allowing E15 to be sold until we resolved some of the problems that ethanol was causing for these smaller engines. Unfortunately, EPA went ahead and granted this waiver for use in automobile model years, I guess 2001 and higher, and newer light-duty vehicles. But of course, the problem is that a lot of times the ethanol blends are not going to be segregated at gas stations, and it's going to cause some misfueling and some further problems. Let me say right up front that I am not a fan of the $6 billion that we spend each year on corn-based ethanol. If I were making cuts in the budget, that would be very high on my list. But we do have mandates, existing ethanol mandates, that the energy, agricultural, and automotive sectors of our economy are already struggling to comply with. So why did EPA make it worse by approving E15?
Well, EPA received a waiver request from Growth Energy and industry group asking for us to review their application for 15% ethanol. I have to be clear, this is not a mandate. EPA does not mandate that E15 be sold. In fact, what EPA is required to do by law is to respond to or make determinations about the safety of various ethanol blends in gasoline. We did that by relying on extensive testing of cars, most of it done by the Department of Energy. It took them $40 million. It took many, many months. And the waiver is based on the science and only the science. EPA is currently required by law to work on a label to prevent misfueling at stations. There are several other things that have to happen, most of them absolutely unrelated to EPA. They have to do with state law and other federal agencies for E15 to enter the market. And EPA is not, it's not our job to make those determinations about what gets sold, but simply to answer the questions that were put to us under ISA.
Well, you didn't have to approve the waiver request, however.
That's absolutely right, Senator. But the requirements of the Clean Air Act basically tell us that a waiver can be granted when you can show that it will not harm vehicles, that there's a number of criteria. I don't have them in my head.
But it is harming vehicles. I'm going to start sending over to you every email I get from Maine, from a Mainer who's had his snowmobile engine ruined or his lawnmower or boat engine fouled because of the concentration of ethanol. In Maine, we have a lot of older cars. Maine is a low-income state, and a lot of people are driving older vehicles and are already experiencing problems with the E10 mix. And they're really concerned about whether it's going to mean when you go to E15. And think of the gas station. I mean, you're correct that they can still sell E10 as well as the E15, but there's infrastructure costs in in having a separate pump, a separate label? How is EPA going to deal with that?
Again, Senator, EPA denied the waiver for snowmobiles and yard equipment and marine engines. What we did was make a science-based finding that for automobiles only and model years newer than 2001 and including 2001, that there wasn't a reliability or safety problem with E15. EPA doesn't have a mandate that E15 be used, but I understand your concerns. Our jurisdiction, if you will, extends to a labeling rule, to putting out a label to help consumers know what the fuel can be used for, which is only 2001 and newer cars.
But I think you're ignoring the reality that there are already problems for these, for the snowmobilers, for the lawnmower operators, for boat, for lobstermen, et cetera, using E10. So it is not of comfort to me when you say, well, there'll be a label for E15. Plus, there's a considerable cost to a small gas station to have another pump that has E15, and so that it's separate. Why should they carry two kinds? I just hope EPA will take a closer look at the implications, and I really am going to start sending over those complaints so that you can explain to my constituents why their engines are being fouled. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to save my next question because I'm out of time. Thank you
very much.